This is CBC Here and Now.
Well, some people have cut a hole here to do some ice fishing. Unfortunately, they're the only people who'll be cutting a hole in this ice. Normally, this is where the Labrathon will be happening. They've had to make some changes at the Winter Games. That story coming up.
A St. John's lawyer says he approached Memorial University months ago about the issue of Indigenous identity, but he still hasn't heard back.
What that implies, without actually saying, is that you are Indigenous.
That story coming up tonight on Here and Now.
I'm Jessica Singer, and I'm here at the Gower Street United Church, where they're holding a special fundraising event. I'll have all the details for you coming up.
Well, good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with some heartbreak tonight for athletes in the Big Land. Organizers for the Labrador Winter Games have voted to cancel the Labrathon event due to what they call unprecedented weather conditions. On the Go host Anthony Germain is in Happy Valley Goose Bay covering the games. He joins us now live. So, Anthony, what's the latest on this situation?
Yeah, Carolyn, we were hoping to actually bring you a really positive story about volleyball, gold medal match going on behind us right now. We'll bring that to you later in the show, but the big news is the cancellation of the Labrathon. It's the signature event, an event based on the life of trappers with some really difficult and unique events that take place. We've been talking about it this week. If you've been watching Here Now and our coverage from Happy Valley Goose Bay, today, official word, it's canceled. First, let's meet some of the athletes, one from Cartwright, one from Nain. They're really disappointed.
I feel like something should have been in place knowing this from the start. They canceled this the day before the event. It's not good enough.
How are you feeling about it?
Oh, so upset. So upset. Like, well, Cartwright, I took gold last year. My brother was also medaling last year. Me and my brother did it together. And, like, we're contenders again this year. Like, this is big things. This isn't just about individual athletes. We're competing for the cup, where there's top athletes awards involved in this stuff. Like, it's disappointing. There's a dishonor to all of this. It's not good enough. This is one of the biggest mandatory sports in the Labrador Winter Games.
Labrathon has been in every Winter Game since it started. This is the 40th anniversary. And it's a trappers race, and to cancel it and not take any suggestions from the coordinators to change locations, if they needed more volunteers. There's team members from different communities willing to step up who wasn't competing during that day. So suggestions that was offered was shot down, and I think it's a complete dishonor because it's one of the most, it's a legacy event.
What does it mean to not have it this year on the 40th year?
Well, it's very disappointing, and there's many athletes that prepared really hard for this. I know Nikki always trains really hard for this. Sherry Rich and Ghetto Rich and Riglet set up their own racetrack in Riglet on their lake. People have trained really hard to participate in this event, and just to be turned away like this, it's really sad. Athletes weren't even brought into the conversation. They changed venues for the dog team race and also the snowshoe race, but nothing accommodating for the Labrathon, which is disappointing.
And you're talking about athletes in general, but you yourself are going to be taking part in this. How are you personally feeling that it's not going ahead?
I'm truly heartbroken and disappointed, but sorry, I'm going to cry. I trained all winter for this as well, and I was prepared to finish this race, so I wanted to compete.
So you can see the disappointment there on the faces of athletes. And remember, these games only happen once every 3 years. Throw in an extra year because of COVID, and it makes the disappointment even more profound. This could be, or could have been, I should say, the last Labrathon for some of the people over here. So a lot of disappointment. The organizers, though, they say they knew this was going to go down in a very difficult way for the athletes who've been training so hard. But Pauline Russell says they really had no choice. It came down to safety, even though they're very sympathetic to the athletes.
And I know exactly how they feel. It's like getting a kick in the guts is the only way to put it. And it's so disheartening. And I know some of the communities are heartbroken, especially coastal communities, because this is an event that they can train for. They don't need no facilities. If you want to be good at the Labrathon, you can go out and train. And that's something we can all do on the coast. And it's always been a big a big part of the Labrador Winter Games for everybody, really.
So if you think of a triathlon, you know, with swimming, running, and cycling, if you were to take one of those events away, it would be a disadvantage to certain athletes who are very strong in the swim or strong on the cycling. And that's the same idea with the Labrathon, ice chipping being very difficult. I'm going to introduce you to the person who holds the record for the Labrathon, and he managed to win this 13 years ago. He was way behind. He managed to win it by actually chipping the hole in the ice faster than anyone could think was humanly possible. Brad Rumbold explains the allure of the Labrathon.
I guess the Labrathon is, in my opinion, one of the most exciting events at the Labrador Winter Games because it basically involves what a Labrador trapper would have done in his daily routines while he was out on his trap line in Labrador. It's done in heat, so usually 6 athletes in a heat, and now male and female both take part in the Labrathon. So there's 4 tilts in the Labrathon where they're required to do a specific craft of a Labrador trapper, I guess. And at the first tilt, they're required to use birch bark, which a traditional trapper would have used to light a fire. And once they get their fire going good, they have to fill their kittle with snow, and a judge is watching their kittle. Once a kittle comes to what they call a rolling boil, then the athlete has to make sure that their fire is fully extinguished. The second tilt they sprint to is the target. They have to knock down 5 targets with a .22 caliber rifle. The athlete then will grab their toboggan and firearm and sprint to the next tilt, which is where they set up a traditional trap and saw through a 6x6 log with a buck saw.
Oh, this is hard. This is a lot of work. I'm tired just listening to you.
Oh, it's very hard, and I know for most of us in life now, we don't do a lot of those traditional things on a daily basis, so unless you train hard for it, this is very difficult.
And you haven't even gotten to the ice chipping yet.
And then you have to chisel a hole down to basically 3 to 4 foot of ice. A judge then has to put a 4-inch pipe right down to that hole clearly into the water, so very challenging. It's an event where you can lose it at either tilt. I mean, to me, it's like playing the game of golf. Everything got to work for you. You're chipping, you're putting, and you're driving, so you got to get your kittle boiled fast. You got to get your targets down quick. You got to get your log sawed fast and get your hole through. You had trouble with just one of those events, it can either make a difference to whether you place as a medal contender or not place in the top 6 at all.
When you think back as to when you won this, what was the event like? Because I understand you didn't look like you were going to win.
No, so actually going into the finals, because with the Labrathon you have to qualify, which is you don't have to do it once, you got to do it twice. So you on the Friday you have to qualify as the top 6 to make the finals on Saturday. So I had the fastest time going in on Friday, and then on Saturday when we went into the finals, I was the last one to leave the kittle boil. I had a horrible fire. I couldn't get my kittle boiled, and everybody else was gone. And this time I was starting to panic a little bit. Anyway, I left and I went to my target, and as I got to the target, I noticed other guys were leaving the log saw and moving on to the ice chump, and I'm thinking, oh my God, all this hard work is for nothing again this time. But luckily my luck changed, and was able to make up a bit of ground here and successfully get over the finish line and get a gold medal, which was very exciting for sure, and having all your friends and family and communities there supporting you. It was a great experience.
So there you have it, the Labrathon, and everything you need to know about that. It can't happen because there's no snow here. Everybody here is taking a look at St. John's and saying, why can't we have the snow they're getting in the city? With the latest situation, here's Ashley Brawweiler.
Yeah, I'm not sure you would want this type of snow. It was very wet pretty much everywhere across the province for the most part. The reason for that snow is a couple areas of low pressure. It's still spinning offshore, in fact, but it is spinning some of those flurries through, or some snow, I should say, for the west coast at the moment. As you can see, that area of low pressure. And then we've got some drizzle for the Avalon, and that has been the story really for a good chunk of the day. If we take a look at what's happening out there on the roads, Burgeo, Springdale, Port Rexton, Corner Brook, all showing just wet pavement at the moment. And as far as those snowfall accumulations are concerned, Clarenville at this point saw the most, about 20 centimeters of snowfall, very highly variable. If you can see, CBS 10 centimeters of snow, St. John's about 9 centimeters of snow, Hermitage on the south coast 7, but really it was very variable. So even St. Albans about 17 centimeters of snow. Now there's still more on the way. We're going to see some more through central and parts of the west coast. I'll get into those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. An Inuk professor is speaking out about the issue of Indigenous identity at Memorial University. Daniel Bennett says he raised the issue of verifying indigeneity claims at MUN late last year. Bennett says he offered to help shape a robust policy, but he didn't hear back. As Here and Now's Ariana Kelland reports, his concerns were partly prompted by the university president talking about her own heritage.
Daniel Bennett first applied to MUN under an Indigenous cluster hire. He self-identified and submitted a letter of support from a community leader. Bennett says he wasn't hired right away. He later was, and says there was no proper verification of his identity. Then he had a second concern at an event last summer for Indigenous hires where President Bian Timmins spoke.
She said at the time, great-great-grandmother or great-great-great-grandmother was from Calm River. For me, that was a red flag because I, had been aware of certain individuals, particularly in academic settings, that were trying to connect themselves to an Indigenous heritage or identity. So I thought it was peculiar that she didn't know if it was great-great or great-great-great.
Bennett says he met with the Vice President Indigenous in December to ask about a vetting policy, specifically about people at the university referencing Indigenous ancestry, though he didn't name Timmins in the meeting. It's not clear how, if at all, a policy would have made a difference in relation to Timmins. Her 2019 CV submitted to MUN did not mention her past membership in an unrecognized band, and she says she feels she has always been clear in distinguishing she does not identify as Indigenous but has Mi'kmaq ancestry.
What that implies, without actually saying, is that you are Indigenous. So I think it's inappropriate actually to be putting that forth. And when I look at Dr. Timmins, she's someone that worked with Indigenous communities for 20 or 30 years, and she either knows better or ought to have known better to do that.
Bennett says he offered to help shape any policy, but did not hear back. We asked the Vice President Indigenous Catherine Anderson for an interview. She declined but sent a statement. In it, she says Indigenous cluster hires need to submit a self-identification form and a letter of support from their community. And that document is reviewed by an Elders Advisory Council. Now, her statement did not address wider concerns about lacking identity policies or practices applicable to any hire. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
A well-known advocate for clergy abuse victims is calling on the Catholic Church to start naming names. Gemma Hickey wants to see a public list of credibly accused Catholic priests in this province. Hickey applauded another Catholic order, the Jesuits of Canada, for releasing a detailed list earlier this week. While there have been several high-profile criminal convictions for priests in this province, Hickey believes it's only scratching the surface.
Newfoundland and Labrador is ground zero when it comes to this type of abuse. When it erupted here in the 80s, it erupted everywhere else. And so, that's why it's really important, particularly here, to have lists that contain the names of credibly accused priests. And we won't back down. We're going to keep the push on.
Well, consumers are getting a break on the cost of fuel tonight. The price of gas is the big one. It's down by nearly 5 cents. The maximum cost on the Avalon is now $1.65 a liter. Diesel is down by 4 cents a liter, as are furnace and stove oils. The only fuel to rise in price is propane by nearly 3 cents. An important vote is underway in Galtus, and depending on the outcome, it could mean the end of the isolated, tiny, and fragile community on Newfoundland's south coast. Here Now's Terry Roberts reports.
For the third time, permanent residents of Galtus, one of a handful of remote, ferry-only access communities on the south coast, are voting on whether to abandon their community. Roughly 75 people received voting kits from Municipal Affairs last week, and if at least 3/4 of them vote in favor, Galtus residents will receive cash payments from the government to help them relocate, and all public services will be eliminated, potentially adding the town to a long list of tiny, hard-to-service communities that have disappeared over the decades. Galtus is located on an island in Hermitage Bay, accessible by a 6-kilometer ferry ride from the dock in Hermitage. The once bustling fishing community has shrunk to less than 100 people, mostly seniors, only 5 students in the school. Plenty of abandoned houses. It's a tough place to live if you have health concerns. And the economic outlook, it's bleak. That's why the question of resettlement has once again resurfaced. Most people support the idea.
This little community now is getting shorter and shorter. And our situation, what we got, winter time, like if anybody can get sick, you can't get out the harbour. You froze in half the time, and the weather is too bad for doing anything. And it's getting smaller here all the time. I'm only going because, like I said, because I'm only young, and all my friends are deciding to leave. They talking about leaving, but you know, what I mean, everything gonna change, eh?
But a small minority are hoping the vote will fail.
I do feel upset about it, be honest with you, because I don't want to see it, be honest with you. And maybe I could be the last one that's going to run out of this year. You know, I'm not going to make any hurry leaving this community.
At least 75% of permanent residents must vote in favor in order to trigger relocation, with a household eligible for up to $270,000 in government assistance. A cost-benefit analysis has shown that the government will save at least $10 million over 2 decades if Galtus is abandoned. Residents have until April 6 to return their ballots to the government. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Bridges to Hope is holding a benefit concert tonight. The food bank has seen a dramatic increase in demand this year, and they're bringing in some big acts to help raise some funds. Here and Now's Jessica Singer is live at the Gower Street United Church in downtown St. John's. So Jessica, what can ticket holders expect tonight?
Well, Carolyn, as you can see, the doors have opened and people are slowly starting to trickle in. And I'm joined now by Jody Williams, who is the Executive Director of Bridges to Hope. Hi, Jody. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So tell me a little bit about why we're here tonight.
We're here tonight. This is our first event we've had since before COVID. We're having a singer-songwriter benefit show. We got Alan Doyle, Kelly McMichael, Rachel Cousins, and Nick Earl. So yeah, I'm really stoked about it. It's great to get out and meet some people again. I mean, most of the last 3 years, a lot of our support and donations have come online, so it's good to, and a lot of people coming tonight are regular supporters, so I get to kind of meet a lot of them.
Awesome, and there's a lot of local acts, so what sort of performances can we see tonight?
Well, I honestly don't know. I think it's going to be, and but that's the cool part. I don't think they know that much. They did a sound check earlier. I mean, Alan, he's the, you know, the rest of them are kind of the younger, up-and-coming songwriters. Alan's the, you know, he's the mentoree kind of guy. He's hosting. So yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of improv. Lots of talking though, which is interesting. You know, they're going to be telling stories about why they wrote the songs, what inspires them. So I think that's going to add a whole other element to the show.
Right, and so you've said demand at the food bank has just skyrocketed recently. Tell us a little bit about that and what you hope tonight's event will bring for the food bank.
Yeah, so I know it seems like I'm on here every 2 weeks saying that we're breaking records, and I'm here again saying that we're breaking records. Last week, just the other day, we did 200 people in 2 days. We did 14 new people in 1 day. So again, these are numbers that we've never seen before. So we're looking to raise about $20,000 here tonight. We have $17,000 raised so far. If anybody out there in TV land wants to help out, you can just text food to 45678 or go to our website to make a donation.
Awesome. And will you ever be holding any events like this again in the future? Is another one in the books?
Yeah, actually, we kind of decided today we're going to make this an annual event. So now that we've gone through the kind of the hoops, whenever you do anything for the first time, obviously there's a bit of learning curves, getting the right team together. But yeah, it's been 3 months in the making. It's taken up most of my time. So I'm super excited here tonight to finally get to this point.
And given the fact that there's been so much demand, how does it feel for someone like yourself who's been working so hard to feed the people of the province to see such a great turnout and to see this support come in for the food bank?
Honestly, I needed this tonight because before COVID, donors would come in, drop off checks. We let our clients in the building. And then over the last 3 years, there's been a bit of disconnect between, say, us and our clients, and even us and our donors. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jody. Reporting live for Here Now, I'm Jessica Singer in St. John's.
Who gets to see this,
Well, up next, we head back to sea aboard the Coast Guard ship Anderson to meet a researcher doing some fascinating work with sharks.
Well, temperatures are up compared to where they were yesterday. We will talk all about that and what's in store coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Bonus prize deadline is midnight, Thursday, April 6th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Before we get to the weather, Ashley, with all the sea ice that's been crowding the shorelines around the island, lots of reports of seals coming in.
Yes, have a look at these pictures. The ice brought this little visitor close to the shore in Bay Roberts. David Hitchcock posted this picture yesterday.
That is adorable. We've heard in the news about polar bears coming close to the shore in some areas, but the ice also brings in the seals. I know on the weekend a seal also hung around Topsail Beach for a while.
Great space to hang out.
Yeah.
Well, there's ice in the harbor. It snowed this morning. The foghorn is going, and now it's raining. That sounds very much like Avalon weather as we head towards spring next week. On Monday is when spring officially arrives, but right now it is not feeling very spring-like out there, or maybe it is, because this is what we typically see. But we have an area of low pressure just to the south of us, bringing some winds at the moment. Easterlies around 28 kilometers per hour, but they're gusting around 43 kilometers per hour. Now, the forecast, it was very variable as far as those snowfall amounts were considered, but it did look like it was going to change over to rain in the afternoon, and that's exactly what happened. So we do still have some snow working its way across the west coast of the island at the moment. And this will generally continue as we head through the night tonight. Now, taking a look at the satellite radar for the Avalon, it's not really showing the drizzle that's happening because it's very light in nature, but we're expecting that to continue as well as we head through the evening hours tonight. Current temperatures hovering around the 0 degree mark, a little bit above along the south coast between 1 and 3 degrees. Badger, you're hovering around the 2 degree mark. And then we've got mild temperatures up across Labrador as well. Happy Valley, Goose Bay at +1. Same thing for Cartwright and Lab City. You are hovering around the 0 degree mark. So if we take a look at what's going on as we head through the overnight, as far as the future tracker is concerned, we're likely going to see some of this snow continue. It will be wet, very wet snow again, so cement snow, as I like to call it. For the west coast, you're looking at the snow continuing. Same thing for the northern peninsula and southeastern Labrador as well. Now, as we head into the early morning hours, we may see some of that snow for the northern portion of the Avalon. But temperatures tonight won't be really moving much from where we are right now. Hovering around the 0 degree mark, maybe a degree above along the south coast. Winds not overly impressive either. Northeasterlies around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Up across Labrador, coldest temperatures will be in the west at -13, and the rest of the Big Land will hover around -3 to -6. For your overnight. Now, taking a look at the future tracker for tomorrow, area of low pressure is going to retrograde. We've been saying that a lot lately, and that just means that the system, instead of moving from west to east, is going to move east to west. So it's going to come back towards the province. It's going to bring another round of snow, it looks like, for tomorrow, but temperatures are going to be warm again, or at least a couple degrees above 0, and that means we may even see some rain mixing in with this, or whatever does fall will be very wet snow. But again, it does look like we should see that push back in across the Avalon as we head into at least the early morning hours tomorrow and then through the first half of the day. Same thing for the northern peninsula. Not a whole lot going on up across Labrador. Just the chance of a few flurries as well. Now through the overnight, we'll see some more snow, or at least some periods of light snow move in for Lab West. Now, as far as snowfall amounts go, doesn't look like too much. We could pick up another maybe 5 to 10 in some areas, but this will be very wet snow. Now that's falling through tomorrow morning. I do think it'll be on the lower end of that. And then even going forward in time as we head into Saturday morning, showing a bit more in the way of accumulation. But again, I do think the accumulation will be on the low end because we are looking at that very wet snow. As far as temperatures go for tomorrow, 1 to about 3 degrees through the day. Winds, again, not really overly impressive. Northeasterlies around 20 to 40 kilometers, northwesterlies 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Again, the chance of some flurries or wet snow and even some drizzle in the mix there. Same thing through central as your temperatures hover around 1 or 2 degrees. Along the south coast, best chance of seeing some showers as your temperatures hover around 3 degrees. West coast, 4, even 5 degrees. Looks nice in Port aux Basques. You will see the chance of a few showers, but you'll also see the chance of some sunshine in the mix. Northern Peninsula, southeastern Labrador, you will be hovering around the 1 degree mark again with some snow in the forecast. And then for Labrador, 2 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay with some sunshine. But as you head towards Lab West, you will see some sunshine to start, but that snow will move in as we head into the evening hours. Your temperatures will be hovering around -3. Now, we have the weekend to look forward to. Get into those details coming up.
There are all kinds of mysteries deep in the ocean. Animals that live way down in the dark aren't easy to access, and so there's little known about their lives. When the Land and Sea team was on board the Coast Guard ship Amundsen, they met a researcher studying a fascinating species, a shark known as the longest living vertebrate. Host of Land and Sea, Jane Eady, has more.
There's an important piece of equipment coming up the side of the research vessel. The Coast Guard crew carefully guides this metal frame back onto the deck. It's been sitting on the bottom of the Labrador Sea for a couple of hours, and researcher Rachel Forbes is depending on it to give her a window into the deep ocean.
We're using these baited video cameras. The acronym is BRUV, so baited remote underwater video cameras. And we're dropping them down to the bottom of the ocean, all along the Labrador coast at different sites.
Squid is what they're using as bait, a favorite snack of this amazing creature. The slow-moving Greenland shark, a shark species that can live from 230 years up to 450 years. The sharks don't even reach sexual maturity until the ripe old age of 150, and that makes them vulnerable.
We just don't know much about them either, you know. There's a lot of mysteries with them. They're deep water sharks, and they stay typically up in the Arctic regions, but also they've been found even off of Belize just this past year. So, you know, we don't know much about them. We all thought that they were just cold water sharks, and they typically are deep.
Anything known about why they live so long?
Well, it's just a very slow metabolism. They don't grow very quickly, less than 1 centimeter per year. So it's really, I feel like it's due to the cold water and just the slow metabolism. They're slow moving animals as well. They don't move very quickly. They're just the lazy shark, I guess you call them. They're known as the sleeper sharks in the sleeper shark family. So
Fisheries and Oceans Canada has been keeping track of these sleepers since 2015. Forbes studies at the Marine Institute, and she hopes to be able to add to the database.
What I'm looking for is the amount of sharks that we see on the camera, also learning about their swimming speed, because there's actually these lasers on the camera, and you could estimate the length of the sharks based on these lasers that shoot out. It's incredible. There's so much information you get from them. So you can learn the swimming speed, you could estimate their age based on the length of the sharks. And from that data, we'll kind of figure out a population dynamic study of where are the adult sharks, where are the females, where are the males, and are there perhaps nursery sites, or just getting an idea of what the sharks are doing, where they are.
On this particular drop, the baited camera was down almost 600 meters, but Greenland sharks are elusive.
Lots of Atlantic cod. A few squid, an anemone. No sharks though, unfortunately.
How does it feel to have that bottom of the ocean view?
Yeah, it's incredible. Because who gets to see this, Unless you're a scuba diver, but you can never dive down to this deep anyway, so this is the closest thing we've got to basically having a submarine, a view of the bottom of the ocean. Oh my gosh.
Rachel is hopeful to see them cross her screen, and even more hopeful she can uncover new information about Greenland sharks.
There's just such a mystery, and I think that's the exciting part about them, is just trying to uncover new discoveries. Sharks just seem so interesting to me. There's so much we need to do to protect them and learn about them.
For Here and Now, I'm Jane Eady with Land and Sea.
Huge is one of our go-to sports.
We're heading back to the Labrador Winter Games to see why volleyball is such a huge sport in some communities. When it comes to the Labrador Winter Games, one of the biggest events for the North Coast communities is volleyball. We go back now to on-the-go host Anthony Germain, who's live in Happy Valley Goose Bay for the game. So Anthony, tell us what makes volleyball such a huge draw for athletes and fans.
Well, a big part of it has to do with the fact that during the long, cold winter, if you're in a small community and have total access small communities, they are just incredible when it comes to volleyball. And we
How big a deal is volleyball on the coast?
It's huge. It's one of our go-to sports. From high school, high school to Labrador Winter Games. Volleyball is our main sport that we compete in. As far as back as I remember, just having volleyball to have something that's really thriving on the North Coast community in regards to competition with the other communities is just volleyball is what we go for.
Volleyball is a big sport. It's the whole North Coast. They pretty much bleed volleyball on the North Coast. So when they come to Winter Games, we know it's going to be a tough division or tough crossovers, whatever it is.
The kids love it. Like as when I was growing up, I would watch others playing, right? Adults in the gym during the two tournaments, and so it just kind of grows because and the kids are so athletic. They love it. It's like ingrained in them, I think.
It brings out the competitiveness in the North Coast communities, I find. To want to win, to want to compete for the top spot is volleyball for the North Coast communities is like, I guess, Labrathon it is to the South Coast communities, let's say for instance. It's just really huge for us. It's intense. From a meter of 0 to 10, we're like 20. Yeah. And we get on the court and your blood gets pumping and you just want to get out there and do your best and compete.
So volleyball coming to an end. Somebody's going to win a gold medal behind me right now. And then later tonight, the Northern Games start. We'll be bringing you coverage of those special, unique sporting activities tomorrow on Here and Now. Reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Anthony Germain.
One mental health organization in St. John saw a surge in demand last spring, and it hasn't slowed down since. I'll talk to the director about the demand and the challenges.
We've told you before about the overwhelming demand for services offered by the Jacob Pudister Memorial Foundation. The organization is a nonprofit. It provides free counseling for people between the ages of 12 and 35. Here Now's Henrika Wilhelm sat down with the director of the foundation to get an update on what kind of demand she's seeing today.
So Kelsey, tell me, I believe it was about a year ago that you had overwhelming demand for the services that you offer here at the foundation. You had to make a decision to close the wait list. What has the demand looked like ever since?
Yeah, the demand at JPMF has been growing kind of since we first started. And last March it was, I think, about 250 people. And so we knew then that we were kind of pushing past what we promised people, which is 8 to 12 week waiting list. And so we were like, okay, we have to make the decision to pause the waiting list, kind of try to get through the people that we have. And so ever since then, we've been opening it every 3 months, at the beginning of the month usually. And every time we get an overwhelming amount of people. 3 months ago, it was open for only 4 hours before we reached 100 people. This time, on March 1st this year, we had 106 requests for services in 6 hours.
So when we talk about this demand that you mentioned, that's been really steadily increasing, what do you think might be the reasons for this increasing demand for the services that people can access here?
I think that the demand has always been there. I think that, of course, the pandemic and kind of the aftermath of that is impacting youth, but I do believe that the youth of Newfoundland and Labrador have needed these services for a long time, and that there are not many other places where we can access this type of counseling and this type of support in the way that youth need and want them.
I saw a post that you made on your social media page about this demand for the services that you offer and the wait lists and the closing and opening. One thing stood out to me because you said that you want the provincial government to see the value of these services that the foundation offers. And how far do you think the services aren't valued, and what might be some of the roadblocks that the foundation is facing?
Yeah, I think that so far the government kind of funds different types of projects and support, which are great. Things like Doorways, which are kind of drop-in counseling services. But what I would love is for people to see the value in long-term counseling, for people to see the value in coming to a place that looks more like a living room than a clinical environment and feeling more comfortable and more able to be vulnerable and open up. One roadblock is we don't have any core funding. We don't have anybody like the government who's stepping in to kind of provide us with core funding for our programming. I think that that's something we're going after now and something we're exploring and trying to get some meetings with folks in the government just to kind of say, hey, this is what we're doing. We would love to have you come by, see what we're doing, kind of talk more. There's so many youth that need this and will continue to need this, right? We see people ranging from I just want to explore what my mental health might look like if I had support, to people who are in crisis who've been waiting on provincial waiting lists for 3 years. And so we want anybody to be able to access our services.
What improvements and changes in the province would you like to see so that you feel like youth and their mental health are better supported in the future?
Yeah, I think I think everybody would say that we just need more funding directly to youth mental health. I think that if we target the youth population, then it's preventative as well, because we're giving them the tools to use for their whole lives, in theory, right? Where they can feel supported kind of moving forward. I think that in general, we need to work more collaboratively and kind of identify those gaps. And so just being able to kind of have more of a collaborative approach within the province. Yeah.
Thanks so much for speaking with me, Kelsey.
Of course.
Well, the Department of Health sent us a statement about mental health funding. It says government provides core funding to nonprofits in 2 ways: the community agencies' grant programs and the Addictions Prevention and Mental Health Promotion Fund program. We want to take you now back to yesterday's town hall in Clarenville. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took part in a Q&A with some members of the public. At one point, they spoke about the oil industry and the need to move from fossil fuels to renewable energy as a way to protect the environment. Here's Trudeau on that.
For now and for probably the next few decades, the world is going to continue to rely in large part, or in a significant part, on oil and gas. So the challenge we have is, how do we extract and use that oil and gas in ways that is as clean as we possibly can be? that is minimal in its emissions, that is capturing and sequestering the carbon before it's emitted into the atmosphere? How are we balancing all those things together? How do we keep things going, make sure there are good jobs, while at the same time as we're generating enough revenue to keep innovating and researching to find those next solutions? But I can tell you that whether it's the unreliability of Russia as a source of energy for Europe, that is Europe asking North America and others to send them more gas and oil so we can get through these next few years as they're adjusting their society. That may be part of the reflection. But the other piece of the reflection is Europe is also saying, okay, but let's not just get off Russian oil and gas, let's try and get off our dependence on oil and gas and fossil fuels as quickly as we can and develop those renewables. And that's very much where Canada is kicking in and where a lot of research and some of the direction that President Biden has taken with the IRA, investing in battery supply chains, investing in renewable solutions and new energy solutions that is going to be able to meet our challenges. So there are a lot of things we're doing now as stepping stones towards a better future. They just all have to fit within that. Perfect example of that is the Bay du Nord project that we approved as a federal government just a few months ago. Now, it has been said by a number of people, right, to point out that if we're going to get to net zero by 2050, we probably shouldn't be opening up new areas of exploration for oil and gas. As a general principle, that makes a lot of sense. But as we look at specific projects, can we do projects that are cleaner, that are lower in their emissions, that are better, and that are going to help us transition towards that world? Yes, we can, and that's why we decided to go forward with Bay du Nord. It's never black and white, one side or the other. We're just trying to figure out the best shades of gray to be able to meet all those priorities of being as low impact as we can to the environment while protecting it as best we can, while making sure that we can still heat our homes and run our businesses and have the capacity to continue to invest in research that's going to bring us beyond that. And there'll be lots of discussions about where the exact right level and calibration is to do on that. But I'm glad those are things that you're thinking about.
Well, forget about snow sculptures. PEI tourists will soon be greeted by this, a large octopus made entirely of sand. About 20 tons of sand, to be specific, and more than 80 hours of work. The finishing touches are still being worked on by the artist. It's part of a new marketing campaign to showcase the island. We'll be right back. Okay, so now it's time to have a look at the long-range forecast, and that means looking ahead to the weekend.
We are looking ahead to the weekend. It looks a bit unsettled for some of us, for sure. Let's just jump right into what's going to happen as far as the forecast is concerned. Now, there's an area of low pressure just offshore, which is going to keep things in northwesterly flow for the most part Friday evening. That's the one that brought that snow today. But we do have another one coming in, and that's going to bring some snow up across parts of Labrador, particularly central Labrador and towards the coast. And then the northern peninsula, you may see a few flurries associated with this one as well. Now, temperatures are going to stay into the minus single digits for Lab City at -9. -1 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, but as you head towards the southeast, those temperatures will be above 0, between 1 and 2 degrees in fact. And Saturday looking pretty nice along the strait, where you'll likely just see some cloudy periods, maybe a few flurries, but at this point, cloudy periods, the story. The potential for some flurries should move in later on in the day. As far as the island is concerned, showers or flurries, the story for the west coast, and that's because your temperatures will be hovering around 3, maybe 4 degrees. That's the story through central as well. Better chance of seeing some sunshine, but also can't rule out the chance of a few flurries. For the Avalon, it looks like around 2 degrees, so you should be above 0, but also looking at some cloudy skies and the chance of some showers or flurries. Now, Saturday evening into Sunday, the system will move in. Looks like the eastern half of the island should stay as rain, or at least change over to rain. You may see a few flurries to start. For central, northern peninsula, you should stay on the cold side of this, and then up across Labrador, we're looking at some periods of snow as we head into the evening hours on Sunday. Temperatures will be well above 0, 4 to 6 degrees across the island, hovering around the 0 degree mark for the northern peninsula, hence staying in the snow. And then temperatures into the minus single digits across the Big Land. Now, long range forecast, after that warm up on Sunday, well, 4 degrees, it'll drop back down to 0 for Monday. Tuesday will be the best chance of seeing the sun at this point, but also can't rule out the chance of a few flurries as our temperature hovers around -1. Now, for central Newfoundland, flurries certainly possible both Monday and Tuesday as your temperature drops as well. And then for western Newfoundland, temperature will hover around -2 with the chance of flurries and maybe some peaks of sun on Tuesday. For eastern Labrador, after that light snow on Sunday, things will settle down by the time we get into Monday, certainly as we get into Tuesday with some sunshine. Minus single digits is the story for you, but overnight lows will dip into the minus double digits. And then for western Labrador, some light snow Sunday, Monday, and flurries the story for your Tuesday.
Wow.
That was a great reaction. There were so many rainbows today. This was actually this morning. This was in CBS, I believe, or at least Conception Bay. But Greg shared this shot with us. So
seems kind of strange to see a rainbow this time of year with all that snow on the ground.
Well, it snowed and then it changed to drizzle, so that's exactly why we saw that. But if you have any photos of anything that you'd like to share with us on Facebook, Twitter, or email to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, what a great picture. Thank you so much, Greg.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's it for us on this Thursday evening. I'm going to be off tomorrow. Peter Cowan will be here. I'm going to be off next week, taking a little bit of a break, but hope you have a lovely evening.
Good night.